which is what makes this New York Times story today so perplexing. It seems that they want to change the subject. The headline reads, "Why the case against Fani Willis feels familiar to black women." How is this about her race or gender? They characterize the allegations as personal attacks on Willis that dismay professional women, but don't surprise them. The point being that Willis is facing extra or undue attention because of who she is, writing that, quote, "Black women are held to a different standard." But is that really true here? Look, let's take it out of this context, right? Let's assume Jack Smith, the special counsel prosecuting federal criminal charges against Donald Trump, related to the same plot to overturn the election. Let's assume he, a white man, was having an affair with a woman who he hired to lead one of the Trump cases. That would be a really big deal. By the way, maybe even a bigger deal than what's happening with Fani Willis. It's possible because he's a man using his influence. Maybe there would be tougher judgment on him, but at the least, we'd be having the same conversation. But the New York Times is tying it to racism and sexism. And that's exactly what Fani Willis did. Back before she admitted to the affair, claiming in a sermon last month that the only reason this is an issue is because her boyfriend, Wade, is the only one of the 3 special prosecutors she hired who is black.
They only attacked one. I hired one white woman, a good personal friend and great lawyer. A superstar, I tell you. I hired one white man, brilliant, my friend, and a great lawyer. And I hired one black man, another superstar, a great friend, and a great lawyer. Oh Lord, they're gonna be mad when I call them out on this nonsense. First thing they say, oh, she gonna play the race card now. But no, God, isn't it them who's playing the race card when they only question one?
I've said this before. The one happens to be the person she's having an affair with, and not the other 2. But now the New York Times is backing up her claim by making the same implication a month later and before we hear the evidence at the hearing, casting doubt really on the process itself. I just don't see how any of this would be different if Fani Willis were Fred Willis or Jack Smith, for that matter. Joining me now, Michael Starr Hopkins, an attorney, Democratic strategist, and host of the Political Roots podcast. Thanks for coming back on the program. Appreciate it. All right, you think I'm getting something wrong here?
Look, I think both can be true. I think that her behavior can be problematic, and I think that also this could be an issue of double standards. Look, if you look at Marcia Clark, for example, she was the lead prosecutor in the O.J. Simpson case. In that case, she was having a relationship with Chris Darden at the time that prosecution was going on. She wasn't removed from the case. Was it potentially something that's problematic? Maybe. But here, I think the real problem is we're talking about what potentially could be the trial of the century. And so when you're an attorney, the rule is the appearance of impropriety. And so, yes, it appears bad, it looks bad, and maybe she shouldn't be talking about it in the way that she is.
Well, look, 2 things. First of all, when it came to the O.J. Simpson case, right, Marcia Clark and Chris Darden have never publicly acknowledged that they were having an affair. But let's even assume that they were, and there could have been some investigation into it. First of all, it's not a political case. Secondly, the investigation that could have taken place there certainly would have turned up that they started this relationship once they were trying the case together. And that's one of the questions that they're trying to determine here is when did the relationship start? What were the potential financial incentives in terms of, again, she is effectively paying him and they're going on vacations together. Again, I don't think it's a particularly strong argument, right? To somehow say, oh, and therefore she has to be disqualified because of it. I've said she should step down, separate issue. But again, coming back, you said it's a double standard. Take my Jack Smith example. Are you telling me if Jack Smith was having an affair with a woman, a white woman, black woman, whatever it is, who was leading one of the prosecutions against Trump, we wouldn't be having this exact same conversation?
I'm saying we'd likely never know because of the level of scrutiny. For Fani Willis, I think one of the biggest problems here is she's making it an issue for women down the line. Women, whether it be black women or white women, there's always going to be an appearance of a second layer of scrutiny. And here, what you have is her making kind of a mockery of the system and also throwing it back in the face so that when women have legitimate claims later, they're not going to be listened to. And that's really the unfortunate case here.
Jack Smith is being scrutinized as closely as anyone. The notion that, oh, Jack Smith isn't being scrutinized, look at what Donald Trump does. He talks about his wife, he talks about his family, he talks about everything. And that's the problem here, right? That's where the Fani Willis argument completely falls apart, is when you compare it to Jack Smith and you say, wait a sec, would these be different? The answer is absolutely not. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your cable provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.